The Danger of Expectancy. Picture this. It's 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in Manhattan, and Sarah sits at her desk staring at her computer screen. She has a quarterly report due by Friday, but instead of opening the document, she's scrolling through her phone, telling herself she'll start in just a few minutes. Those few minutes turn into hours, and suddenly it's lunchtime. Sound familiar? Or maybe you're like Jake, a freelance graphic designer in Austin, who's been avoiding a client call for 3 days. He knows he needs to discuss project revisions, but every time he picks up the phone, he finds another urgent task to do first, checking emails, organizing his desk, even doing laundry. Anything but making that call. If you've ever found yourself in these situations, you're not alone. Procrastination affects millions of people, and it's not just about being lazy or unmotivated. There's something deeper going on, something that the ancient Stoic philosophers understood over 2,000 years ago. The Roman philosopher Seneca once wrote, "The greatest hindrance to living is expectancy, which depends upon the morrow and wastes today." Think about that for a moment. When we procrastinate, we're essentially living in tomorrow while completely abandoning today. We tell ourselves we'll feel more motivated tomorrow, we'll have more energy next week, or we'll be better prepared next month. But here's the brutal truth. Tomorrow never comes, because when tomorrow arrives, it becomes today, and we're still the same person with the same habits. This constant focus on the future creates a dangerous cycle. While we're busy planning and worrying about tomorrow, we're wasting the only moment we actually have, right now. We're giving away our power to some imaginary future version of ourselves who will somehow be more disciplined, more motivated, and more capable than we are today. But procrastination isn't just about wasting time. It has real consequences that compound over time. When Sarah doesn't start her report on Tuesday, she's not just losing a few hours. She's setting herself up for a week of stress, rushed work, and potentially poor results. When Jake avoids that client call, he's not just delaying a conversation. He's risking his professional reputation and creating anxiety that grows stronger each day. The Stoics understood that this pattern of avoidance and delay literally costs us more energy than just doing the work itself. Think about it. How much mental energy do you spend thinking about the task you're avoiding? How much stress do you create by pushing things off? How much time do you waste feeling guilty about not starting? Often, the energy we spend avoiding something is far greater than the energy required to actually do it. Here's what makes this even more frustrating. Deep down, we know we're making excuses. When we tell ourselves we deserve a long break to play games or binge-watch Netflix instead of working on our project, we know it's not really about deserving anything. We know we're just avoiding discomfort, but we've become experts at convincing ourselves that our excuses are legitimate reasons. This is where ancient Stoic wisdom becomes incredibly relevant for our modern lives. The Stoics didn't just philosophize about these problems. They lived them. Marcus Aurelius was running an empire while dealing with plagues, wars, and personal tragedies. Seneca was managing his political career, business interests, and philosophical writings. Epictetus was teaching students while overcoming the trauma of slavery and physical disability. These weren't people sitting in ivory towers. They were dealing with real pressures and real deadlines, just like us. The difference is that they developed a framework for action that cuts through all the mental noise and excuses. They understood that procrastination isn't really about the task itself. It's about how we think about the task. It's about our relationship with discomfort, our fear of failure, and our tendency to live everywhere except the present moment. Today, we're going to explore their timeless wisdom and discover how to apply it to our modern challenges. We'll uncover why your mind tricks you into procrastinating, how anxiety and fear fuel this behavior, and most importantly, how to build the Stoic mindset that transforms procrastination into purposeful action. By the end of this journey, you'll have practical tools that have been tested not just in ancient Rome, but in the boardrooms of New York, the startups of Silicon Valley, and the everyday lives of people just like you. The Stoics believed that we have everything we need within us to overcome procrastination. We just need to understand how to access that power. So let's start by examining exactly why our minds seem to work against us when it comes to getting things done. 1. Why your mind tricks you into procrastinating. Meet David, a marketing manager in Denver who's been staring at his laptop for 2 hours, supposedly working on a campaign proposal that could land his company a major client. Instead, he's reorganized his email folders 3 times, updated his LinkedIn profile, and somehow ended up reading articles about productivity. Anything except actually writing the proposal. He keeps telling himself he needs to research more or wait for the right inspiration. But deep down, he knows he's just avoiding the work. Or consider Maria, a graduate student in Boston who has 6 months to complete her thesis. Every day, she sits down with the best intentions, opens her research documents, and then suddenly remembers she needs to clean her apartment, call her mom, or check for updates on social media. She's convinced herself that she works better under pressure, so she'll start seriously next week. But next week never comes, and the deadline keeps getting closer. These scenarios reveal something crucial that the Stoic philosophers understood. Procrastination isn't simply about laziness or lack of motivation. It's about how our minds create elaborate justifications for avoiding discomfort. The Stoics called this the difference between what is real and what we tell ourselves is real. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The key word here is realize. Most of us don't recognize that we're constantly creating stories about why we can't or shouldn't do something right now. We've become masters at transforming illegitimate excuses into seemingly legitimate reasons. When David tells himself he needs to research more, he's not really researching. He's avoiding the discomfort of potentially writing something imperfect. When Maria convinces herself she works better under pressure, she's postponing the anxiety of facing a challenging task. These aren't conscious lies. They're unconscious defense mechanisms our minds create to protect us from discomfort. The Stoics understood that human beings naturally seek pleasure and avoid pain. This isn't a character flaw, it's how we're wired. But here's where it gets interesting. We often associate necessary tasks with pain, effort, and boredom, while we associate distractions with pleasure and relief. Our minds steer us away from the painful work toward the pleasurable distraction. Epictetus taught his students that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This applies perfectly to procrastination. The task itself isn't the problem. It's our judgment about the task that creates our suffering. When we view writing a report as boring and difficult, we're not describing the task objectively. We're crafting a narrative that makes avoidance seem reasonable. When you're doing something you enjoy, time flies. Hours can pass without you realizing it when you're engaged in a hobby or having a great conversation. But with tasks you've labeled as unpleasant, every minute feels like an hour. The difference isn't in the activity itself, it's in your relationship with it. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." He wasn't just talking about mindfulness in a general sense. He meant engaging fully with whichever task is in front of you right now, without mental commentary that makes it seem unbearable. Another trap is telling ourselves we deserve breaks or rewards before we've done the work. David might think, "I've been working hard all week, so I deserve to browse the internet." Maria might say, "I've been stressed about this thesis, so I deserve to relax and watch some Netflix." These thoughts feel reasonable, but they're sophisticated forms of self-deception. The Stoics would ask, "What have you accomplished that deserves a reward?" If you haven't done the work, what exactly are you rewarding yourself for? This isn't about being harsh with yourself. It's about honesty. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." You can't celebrate the end of something you haven't started. Perfectionism often disguises itself as procrastination. Many people avoid starting because they want to do something perfectly and don't feel ready to achieve that. But perfectionism is often just fear wearing a mask. The fear of doing something imperfectly becomes a reason to not do it at all. Marcus Aurelius had a different approach. He believed that taking action, even imperfect action, is part of human nature. He wrote, "In the morning when thou risest unwillingly, let this thought be present: I am rising to the work of a human being." He noted that we get up and work. It's not about perfection. It's about doing. The Stoics also recognized that our minds create false urgency around everything except the task we should be doing. When it's time to write that report, cleaning the kitchen suddenly becomes critical. When it's time to make a difficult phone call, organizing files becomes urgent. This isn't a coincidence. It's our mind creating plausible alternatives to what we're avoiding. Epictetus taught that we should examine our thoughts and ask, "Is this thought helping me act in accordance with virtue, or is it helping me avoid what I know I should do?" Most procrastination thoughts fall into the second category, but we don't usually stop to examine them. The reality is that legitimate reasons for postponing something are rare. Real emergencies or genuine health issues are valid, but most of what we call reasons are really just preferences dressed up as necessities. We prefer comfort over challenge and immediate gratification over delayed satisfaction. Understanding this mental trickery is the first step toward freedom. Once you recognize that your mind generates stories to justify avoidance, you can start to question those stories. You can ask yourself, is this truly a legitimate reason, or am I just uncomfortable with the task ahead? Most of the time, the answer will be uncomfortable but clarifying. The Stoics believed that this kind of honest self-examination is essential for living a good life. They wanted to see reality clearly, even when it was challenging. The truth is that most of our procrastination comes from our own mental habits, not from external circumstances. This realization might seem discouraging, but it's empowering. If procrastination stems from your thoughts about tasks rather than the tasks themselves, you have the power to change it. You don't need to wait for external circumstances to improve. You can start working with your mind right now. Recognizing the mental tricks is just the beginning. The deeper question is, why do we create these avoidance strategies? What are we really afraid of? That's where anxiety and fear come into play. and that's what we'll explore next. 2. How anxiety and fear fuel procrastination, the Stoic solution. Imagine Emily, a project manager in Chicago. She has a significant presentation due in a week, yet every time she sits down to prepare, she feels a wave of anxiety wash over her. The thought of standing in front of her colleagues, presenting her ideas, fills her with dread. Instead of focusing on her slides, she finds herself scrolling through social media or cleaning her apartment, anything to distract herself from the looming deadline. She's convinced that if she just waits a bit longer, she'll feel more inspired and ready. But the deadline approaches, and so does her anxiety. Emily's experience is not uncommon. Many people find themselves caught in a cycle of procrastination driven by anxiety and fear. The more we avoid a task, the more anxious we become about it, creating a self-perpetuating cycle that can feel impossible to escape. This cycle can be understood through the lens of Stoic philosophy, which offers powerful insights into managing our emotions and actions. Epictetus, a prominent Stoic philosopher, taught that our reactions to events, rather than the events themselves, determine our feelings. He famously stated, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This principle is crucial for understanding procrastination. The tasks we avoid often evoke feelings of anxiety and fear because we inflate their significance in our minds. We perceive them as monumental challenges rather than manageable tasks. For instance, when faced with a daunting report, we might think, "This is going to be impossible, and I'll probably fail." This negative self-talk increases our anxiety and makes us more likely to procrastinate. Instead of viewing the task as an opportunity to demonstrate our abilities, we see it as a threat to our self-worth. The Stoics believed that it is not the task at hand that causes our anxiety, but our perceptions and judgments about that task. When we allow our minds to magnify the difficulty of a task, we set ourselves up for fear and avoidance. The first step in overcoming procrastination is to examine our thoughts critically. Are we treating the task as a mountain when it is merely a hill? Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminds us to focus on the present and not to fear what lies ahead. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This insight is a powerful tool for combating procrastination. By recognizing that our anxiety stems from our misperceptions, we can begin to reframe our approach to tasks. One effective Stoic technique for managing anxiety is the practice of cognitive reframing. Cognitive reframing involves changing your perspective about a task to reduce anxiety. Instead of viewing a report as a test of your abilities, see it as a chance to learn and grow. This shift can transform your relationship with the task and diminish the anxiety associated with it. Additionally, the Stoic concept of the dichotomy of control is vital here. We cannot control how others will receive our work or what challenges may arise, but we can control how we prepare and respond. When Emily feels anxious about her presentation, she can remind herself that her focus should be on her preparation, not on the outcome. By concentrating on her efforts rather than the results, she can alleviate some of her anxiety. Another powerful Stoic tool is negative visualization, a practice that involves contemplating the worst-case scenario. This might seem counterintuitive, but it can help reduce fear. By acknowledging that the presentation could go poorly, Emily can prepare herself emotionally, making the possibility less daunting. In doing so, she realizes that even if things don't go as planned, she will still be okay. The fear of failure becomes less paralyzing when we accept that it is a possibility, not a certainty. Additionally, breaking tasks into smaller, manageable parts can help combat anxiety. When we view a task as a whole, it can feel overwhelming. Instead, consider dividing your work into smaller segments. For example, Emily can focus on outlining her presentation first, then creating slides, and finally rehearsing. Each small action is a step forward, making the overall task feel less intimidating. The Stoics also emphasized the importance of action in overcoming fear and anxiety. As Epictetus taught, "Act, and you free yourself." By taking even the smallest action, you can disrupt the cycle of avoidance. Emily could start by drafting just one slide instead of trying to complete the entire presentation. This small action can create momentum and help her feel more in control. Moreover, developing a routine can be beneficial. The Stoics believed in the power of discipline and consistency. Establishing a daily routine that includes time for focused work can help reduce anxiety. When tasks become part of your regular schedule, they lose their power to provoke fear. Emily might set aside specific hours each day to work on her presentation, making it a non-negotiable part of her routine. Finally, self-compassion plays a crucial role in managing anxiety and procrastination. The Stoics taught that recognizing our shared humanity and imperfections can help ease our internal pressure. Instead of berating yourself for procrastinating, practice self-kindness. Understand that everyone struggles with anxiety and fear at times, and it's okay to seek help or take a step back when needed. In conclusion, procrastination fueled by anxiety and fear can be a significant barrier to productivity. However, by applying Stoic principles, we can reframe our perceptions, focus on what we can control, and take actionable steps to overcome these feelings. The Stoics provide us with valuable insights that can transform our relationship with tasks, turning anxiety into action. By recognizing that anxiety stems not from the tasks themselves but from our judgments about them, we can begin to dismantle the barriers that hold us back. As we continue to explore Stoic wisdom, we will uncover practical strategies to combat procrastination and cultivate a mindset centered on action and virtue. 3. The Stoic secret to seizing the present moment. Imagine Alex, a software developer in San Francisco, sitting at his desk with 3 coding projects due this week. Instead of diving into his work, he's checking Twitter, reading tech blogs, and convincing himself he's staying informed about industry trends. Every few minutes, he opens his code editor, stares at the blank screen, then immediately switches to another tab. He tells himself he'll start coding after lunch, or when I feel more focused, but the day keeps slipping away. Meanwhile, across the country in Miami, Jessica owns a small marketing agency. She knows she needs to review her quarterly finances and plan her budget for next month. But every time she opens her accounting software, she suddenly remembers an urgent email to send or a social media post to schedule. She's been putting off this financial planning for weeks, telling herself she'll tackle it when things calm down or when I have a full day to focus. Both Alex and Jessica are trapped in what the Stoics identified as one of the most destructive human tendencies: living everywhere except the present moment. They're mentally in the future, worried about outcomes and waiting for perfect conditions, while completely abandoning the only time they actually have power to act, right now. Seneca understood this trap intimately. As a busy Roman statesman juggling political responsibilities, business interests, and philosophical writing, he could have easily fallen into the same pattern of delay and distraction. Instead, he developed what might be the most powerful insight in all of Stoic philosophy. Life is long enough if you know how to use it. The key phrase here is, if you know how to use it. Most of us don't know how to use our time because we're constantly giving it away to an imaginary future. We tell ourselves we'll be more motivated tomorrow, more prepared next week, or more inspired next month. But as Seneca observed, the part of life we really live is small. We're so busy planning for someday that we never actually arrive at today. This is where the Stoic approach becomes revolutionary. While other philosophies might focus on motivation techniques or complex productivity systems, the Stoics cut straight to the heart of the matter. The present moment is the only place where action is possible. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow doesn't exist yet, and right now is all we have. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his Meditations while managing an empire under constant threat, captured this perfectly. Confine yourself to the present. He wasn't speaking theoretically. He was reminding himself, in the middle of overwhelming responsibilities, that the only moment he could actually influence was the one he was living. But here's what makes this insight so powerful. When we truly focus on the present moment, most of our procrastination dissolves automatically. Alex's anxiety about his coding projects exists primarily in his imagination of future scenarios. What if the code doesn't work? What if his manager isn't satisfied? What if he can't meet the deadline? None of these scenarios exist in the present moment. Right now, there's just Alex, his computer, and the next line of code to write. Jessica's overwhelm about her finances is similarly rooted in future projections. What if her numbers are worse than expected? What if she needs to make difficult decisions? What if her business isn't as profitable as she hoped? But in the present moment, there's just Jessica, her computer, and the next transaction to review. The Stoics developed a specific practice for cultivating this present moment awareness. They called it the discipline of desire, which involves focusing entirely on what is happening right now rather than what we wish were happening or what we fear might happen. When applied to procrastination, this means engaging fully with the task at hand without mental commentary about how difficult it is or how much we'd rather be doing something else. Seneca took this even further with his understanding of time and opportunity. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Every moment we spend avoiding a task is a moment we're giving away to what he called fortune, the unpredictable forces beyond our control. When we postpone action, we're essentially betting that future circumstances will be more favorable than present ones. But we have no control over future circumstances. We only have control over our present choices." This is why Seneca urged, "Why do you delay? Why are you idle? Unless you seize the day, it flees." He understood that opportunities exist in real time, not in our plans for the future. The perfect moment to start is always now, not because now is perfect, but because now is the only moment that exists. Marcus Aurelius reinforced this with his famous reflection, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work as a human being.'" Notice that he didn't say, "I have to go to work when I feel motivated," or I have to go to work when conditions are ideal. He recognized that action is simply part of human nature, regardless of our feelings about it. The Stoic approach to present moment action also involves what they called the view from above, seeing our current task in the context of our entire life. When Alex steps back and considers his coding work from this perspective, he realizes that avoiding it for a few hours won't matter in 10 years, but the habit of avoidance will. When Jessica considers her financial planning from this broader view, she sees that the discomfort of facing her numbers is temporary, but the consequences of ignorance are long-lasting. This perspective shift is crucial because it helps us distinguish between what the Stoics called preferred indifference and what truly matters. Whether Alex's code is perfect or just good enough is a preferred indifferent. It's nice if it works out well, but it's not essential to his character or virtue. What matters is that he acts with discipline and integrity, doing his best with the time and resources he has right now. The practical application of the Stoic secret is surprisingly simple. Whenever you notice yourself procrastinating, ask yourself, what can I do right now? Not what you should do later, not what you'll do when you feel ready, but what you can do in this exact moment. Usually, the answer is something small but concrete. Write one sentence, make one phone call, organize one file. The Stoics understood that present moment action creates momentum. When Alex writes just one line of code, he's not just making progress on his project. He's practicing the discipline of present moment engagement. When Jessica enters just one transaction into her accounting software, she's building the habit of facing reality rather than avoiding it. This momentum is what transforms procrastination into productivity. But it requires more than just understanding the concept. It requires specific strategies and techniques that make present moment action practical and sustainable. That's exactly what we'll explore in our next section. 4. 5 powerful Stoic strategies to beat procrastination. Meet Rachel, a consultant in Philadelphia who transformed her entire approach to work after discovering these 5 Stoic strategies. 6 months ago, she was constantly behind on client deliverables, stressed about deadlines, and stuck in endless cycles of procrastination. Today, she tackles challenging projects with confidence and consistency. Her secret? She applied the same techniques that helped Roman emperors and philosophers manage their responsibilities over 2,000 years ago. Let's explore these 5 powerful strategies that can revolutionize your relationship with procrastination. Strategy 1. Memento mori, remember your mortality. The first strategy comes from the Latin phrase memento mori, meaning remember you will die. This isn't meant to be morbid, it's designed to create urgency and clarity about what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself of life's brevity, writing, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." When Rachel feels tempted to postpone a difficult client presentation, she asks herself, if I only had 6 months to live, would I spend today avoiding this task? The answer is always no. This perspective immediately cuts through her excuses and false priorities. She realizes that the discomfort of working on the presentation is temporary, but the regret of wasted time is permanent. To apply this strategy, set a daily reminder on your phone that simply says memento mori. When it goes off, pause and consider, how do I want to spend the remaining hours of this day? This practice transforms procrastination from a casual habit into a serious waste of your most precious resource, time. Strategy 2. Stoic compartmentalization, the power of microactions. Epictetus taught that we should focus on small, daily disciplines rather than overwhelming ourselves with massive goals. He said, "Wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants." This principle applies perfectly to task management. Instead of wanting to complete everything at once, focus on completing one small thing. Rachel learned to break her most intimidating projects into what she calls micro-actions, tasks so small they feel almost silly to avoid. Instead of complete client proposal, she writes open proposal document or write one bullet point. These micro-actions remove the psychological barrier that makes tasks feel overwhelming. The key is making these actions ridiculously small. If you're avoiding writing a report, your micro-action might be open Word document and type the title. If you're postponing a difficult conversation, it might be find the person's phone number. These tiny steps create momentum and prove to your brain that the task isn't as threatening as it seemed. Strategy 3. The view from above, cosmic perspective. Marcus Aurelius regularly practiced what he called the view from above, imagining himself from a cosmic perspective to put his problems in context. He wrote, "How small a fragment of time is allotted to each of us, for very swiftly it vanishes in the universal flux." When Rachel feels overwhelmed by a challenging project, she imagines viewing her situation from space. From that perspective, her current task seems much less intimidating. She realizes that whether she completes it perfectly or imperfectly won't matter in the grand scheme of the universe, but the character she builds through disciplined action will. This strategy is particularly powerful for perfectionists who procrastinate because they're afraid of doing something imperfectly. The cosmic perspective reminds us that our fear of imperfection is often disproportionate to the actual consequences of imperfect action. Strategy 4. Negative visualization, imagining the consequences. Seneca practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining potential negative outcomes not to create anxiety, but to build resilience and motivation. He wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster." Rachel uses this technique by clearly visualizing the consequences of continued procrastination. She imagines losing a client due to missed deadlines, feeling the stress of last-minute rushing, or experiencing the disappointment of subpar work. This isn't about creating fear, it's about honest assessment of where avoidance leads. The key is to make these consequences vivid and specific. Instead of vaguely thinking things will be bad, imagine exactly what bad looks like. How will you feel? What opportunities might you lose? What relationships might suffer? This clarity often provides the motivation needed to take immediate action. Strategy 5. Evening reflection, Seneca's daily review. Seneca ended each day with a practice of reflection, examining his actions and decisions. He wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine the whole day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." Rachel adapted this practice by spending 10 minutes each evening reviewing her day. She asks herself 3 questions. What did I accomplish today? What did I avoid that I should have addressed? And what will I commit to doing first thing tomorrow? This reflection helps her identify patterns of procrastination and make specific plans for improvement. The evening reflection also includes planning the next day's priorities. By deciding in advance what she'll work on, Rachel removes the decision-making burden that often leads to procrastination. When she sits down to work, she already knows exactly what to do. Putting it all together. These 5 strategies work best when used together as a comprehensive system. Rachel starts each day by reviewing her priorities. Evening reflection breaks challenging tasks into micro-actions. Compartmentalization reminds herself of life's brevity. Memento mori maintains perspective on her challenges, view from above, and stays motivated by understanding the consequences of avoidance. Negative visualization. The beauty of these Stoic strategies is their simplicity and timelessness. They don't require special apps, complex systems, or perfect conditions. They work whether you're managing an empire like Marcus Aurelius or handling client projects like Rachel. They're based on fundamental truths about human nature and the reality of time, which makes them as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate all discomfort or make work effortless. The goal is to develop the discipline and perspective needed to act consistently, regardless of how you feel in the moment. These strategies help you build what the Stoics called virtue, the character strength that enables right action even when it's difficult. But strategies alone aren't enough. To truly overcome procrastination, you need to cultivate a deeper mindset shift that makes disciplined action feel natural rather than forced. That's where building the Stoic mindset for lifelong action becomes essential. 5. Building the Stoic mindset for lifelong action. 2 years ago, Michael, an entrepreneur in Dallas, was drowning in his own ambitions. He had brilliant business ideas but couldn't execute them consistently. He'd start projects with enthusiasm, then abandon them when the work got difficult. His days were filled with planning, researching, and preparing, but very little actual doing. Today, Michael runs a thriving consulting business and attributes his transformation to adopting what he calls the Stoic mindset, a fundamental shift in how he thinks about work, success, and his role as a human being. The difference between using Stoic strategies occasionally and living with a Stoic mindset is like the difference between taking medicine when you're sick and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Strategies are tools you apply when procrastination strikes. Mindset is the foundation that prevents procrastination from taking root in the first place. Marcus Aurelius understood this distinction perfectly. In his meditations, he didn't just record techniques for dealing with problems, he explored the deeper philosophical principles that shaped his entire approach to life. He wrote, "In the morning when thou risest unwillingly, let this thought be present: I am rising to the work of a human being. What have I to complain of if I am going to do the things for which I exist and for which I was brought into the world?" This passage reveals the core of the Stoic mindset, viewing work not as an unfortunate necessity, but as the fundamental expression of human nature. Michael's breakthrough came when he stopped seeing his business tasks as obstacles to overcome and started seeing them as opportunities to fulfill his purpose as a human being. The Stoic mindset begins with what philosophers call the discipline of desire, aligning your wants with reality rather than demanding that reality align with your wants. Most procrastination stems from wanting tasks to be easier, more enjoyable, or more immediately rewarding than they are. The Stoic mindset accepts tasks as they are and finds meaning in the act of engagement itself. Consider Sarah, a marketing professional in Atlanta who struggled for years with procrastination on analytical reports. She wanted this work to be creative and inspiring, but it was often tedious and detail-oriented. Her breakthrough came when she stopped wishing the work were different and started appreciating it for what it actually was: an opportunity to practice precision, develop discipline, and contribute value to her team. This shift from "I wish this were easier" to "I accept this as it is" might seem like a small change, but it's revolutionary. When you stop fighting against the nature of your tasks, you free up enormous mental energy that was previously wasted on resistance and resentment. The Stoic mindset also embraces what Epictetus called the discipline of action, acting in accordance with virtue regardless of outcomes. This means focusing on effort and character rather than results and recognition. Michael learned to measure his success not by how much money he made or how many clients he gained, but by how consistently he showed up and did his best work. This focus on process over outcomes is liberating because it puts success entirely within your control. You can't control whether clients will love your proposal, but you can control how much effort you put into creating it. You can't control whether your project will be approved, but you can control how thoroughly you prepare it. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. When your sense of accomplishment depends on your actions rather than external validation, procrastination loses much of its power. You're no longer avoiding tasks because you're afraid of failure. You're engaging with them because engagement itself is success. The Stoic mindset also involves what they called preferred indifference, recognizing that while some outcomes are preferable to others, none of them are essential to your well-being or worth as a person. Whether your presentation goes perfectly or just adequately is a preferred indifferent. What matters is that you prepared thoroughly and delivered it with integrity. This perspective eliminates the perfectionism that often fuels procrastination. Sarah used to avoid starting reports because she wanted them to be perfect, but perfectionism was really fear disguised as high standards. The Stoic mindset taught her to aim for excellence while accepting that perfection is neither possible nor necessary. Another crucial element is the Stoic understanding of time and mortality. They regularly contemplated the brevity of life, not to create anxiety, but to create urgency about what truly matters. Michael keeps a note on his desk that says, "Memento mori, remember you will die." This isn't morbid, it's motivating. When he's tempted to procrastinate, he remembers that his time is limited and precious. The Stoic mindset also involves daily practices that reinforce these principles. Seneca recommended evening reflection, Marcus Aurelius practiced morning intention setting, and Epictetus emphasized continuous self-examination. These aren't just techniques, they're ways of life that gradually reshape your relationship with work and responsibility. Michael's daily routine now includes 10 minutes of morning reflection where he sets his intentions for the day, focusing on how he wants to show up rather than what he wants to accomplish. He ends each day with Seneca's practice of reviewing his actions and decisions, asking himself where he acted with virtue and where he could improve. The transformation isn't about becoming a different person, it's about becoming more fully yourself. The Stoics believed that humans are naturally designed for action, virtue, and contribution. Procrastination is essentially a form of self-betrayal, avoiding the very activities that would allow you to flourish. Building this mindset takes time and practice. Michael didn't transform overnight. He gradually developed new thought patterns and habits over months. But the change, once established, feels natural and sustainable because it's based on fundamental truths about human nature rather than artificial motivation techniques. The Stoic mindset ultimately makes procrastination irrelevant. When you see work as expression of your nature, when you focus on effort over outcomes, when you accept tasks as they are rather than wishing they were different, and when you remember the preciousness of time, the question isn't whether you feel like working. It's simply what needs to be done next. This mindset shift is the foundation that makes all other anti-procrastination strategies effective. Without it, techniques are just temporary fixes. With it, you develop the inner strength and clarity that make consistent action feel natural and inevitable. Your Stoic path to conquering procrastination. We've journeyed through over 2,000 years of wisdom, from the bustling streets of ancient Rome to the modern offices of New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. The Stoic philosophers faced the same fundamental challenge we face today: how to act with purpose and discipline when our minds constantly pull us toward distraction and delay. Think about where you were when we started this exploration. Maybe you were like Sarah in Manhattan, staring at that quarterly report, or like Jake in Austin, avoiding that difficult client call. Perhaps you recognized yourself in David's endless research, or Maria's conviction that she works better under pressure. The truth is, we've all been there, trapped in the cycle of procrastination. knowing what we should do but struggling to actually do it. But now you have something different. You have the same tools that helped Marcus Aurelius manage an empire, that guided Seneca through political turmoil, and that gave Epictetus strength to overcome slavery and teach others about freedom. These aren't just ancient ideas. They're practical strategies that work in our modern world because they're based on timeless truths about human nature. Remember the 5 strategies we explored. Using memento mori to create urgency, breaking tasks into micro-actions, maintaining the cosmic perspective, visualizing consequences, and practicing evening reflection. But more importantly, remember that these strategies work best when they're supported by the deeper Stoic mindset, viewing work as expression of your nature, focusing on effort over outcomes, and accepting reality as it is rather than wishing it were different. The path forward is clear and simple. Start tomorrow morning with Marcus Aurelius's reminder, "I am rising to the work of a human being." When you feel the familiar pull of procrastination, ask yourself Epictetus's question, "Is this thought helping me act with virtue or helping me avoid what I should do?" When you're overwhelmed by a large task, remember Seneca's wisdom about the present moment being all you truly have. Most importantly, be patient with yourself. The Stoics understood that building virtue and discipline is a lifelong practice, not a destination you reach and then maintain effortlessly. Every time you choose action over avoidance, you're strengthening the mental muscles that make future action easier. Your procrastination doesn't define you. It's simply a habit that can be changed through consistent practice of these ancient principles. Whether you're managing a team in Dallas, building a business in Miami, or pursuing your education in Boston, these Stoic insights can transform your relationship with work and responsibility. The Roman Stoics believed that we all have the capacity for virtue and disciplined action within us. We just need to cultivate it through daily practice and philosophical reflection. Today is the perfect day to begin that cultivation. If this video has inspired you to embrace the Stoic path to overcoming procrastination, please subscribe to the Stoic Vivu channel for more ancient wisdom applied to modern challenges. Give this video a like if it helped you see procrastination in a new light, and share it with anyone who might benefit from these timeless insights. Remember, as Seneca taught us, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Your journey from procrastination to purposeful action begins now. The Stoics are with you every step of the way.